Hello and welcome back to the weekly woo from November 10th to November 16th, 2025. Okay, so we are going to, off the hop, we are going to go into planetary shifts and kind of what's going on generally this week. But I am actually going to start a day behind. I'm going to start with November 9th because Mercury stations retrograde on November 9th in the sign of Sagittarius. Later on, as we get into the few week time zone of Mercury retrograde, it will indeed retrograde back into the sign of Scorpio. Okay, so Mercury retrograde is on November 9th. Okay, so that's a day it stations. Remember that any day that a planet stations retrograde, it's its closest point to the Earth, which makes it its most powerful point. Okay, and just remember, Mercury retrograde is not the time to buy anything new, do anything new. I'll get into more details later on. It's about review, revise, redo, perfect old, current things, okay? It recultivates back into the past, okay? So that being said, we'll move on to November 10th. Actually, November 10th is nothing day. We have just a blank day of no aspects. So that's a pause and reflect and sort and shuffle things around. November 11th, we will have Jupiter stationing retrograde, and it is retrograding in the sign of Cancer. And I believe 20 degrees Cancer is the degree it's going to retrograde back at, okay? So just know Jupiter retrograde will be retrograde for the remainder of the 2025 year, okay? Right into 2026. I'm going to talk about November 12th. It's not a shift, but we do have a high impact aspect, Mercury conjunct Mars. Okay, so that's definitely a circle today. 13th, we have no aspects. The November 15th, we have Vesta entering Capricorn. Remember, Vesta is not a planet, it's actually an asteroid, and all our asteroids are feminine, female energies. Okay. And so that pretty much will wrap up our planetary shifts for this particular week from the 10th to the 16th. So I'm going to jump over into the overshadowing energy. So we are day by day fading away from our eclipse season. So I like to allow about 60 days, 2 months on the other side of the post shadow eclipse season. Okay, remember the last solar eclipse, or I believe it was partial solar eclipse, was on September 21st. So that basically takes us through to about November 21st, which just happens to coincide pretty much the ending of Scorpio season. So that's very, very highly transformative in certain areas of life. It's about endings, it's about completions, conclusions, rolling over something old, it's the death and rebirth, it's the regeneration energy, right? So that can be very, very impactful when it's holding hands with the eclipse season. So about like a day by day, that energy fades. So remember, eclipses eclipse people, places, things, stuff in or out of life, usually on a permanent value or in permanent nature. It's a permanent change. Eclipses bring change into life. Those are those eclipses that we have absolutely nothing to say about. All we are able to do is react and respond, and hopefully respond accordingly. So normally eclipse changes are permanent in nature is what I wanted to say. And so they can be small, medium, and large changes. And just know they come twice a year, right? And those are those kind of trajectory changes that we go through in life that kind of alter our path to our north node or our destined path in life, right? So those kind of bring us along and they kind of realign us on our path or our journey in life. That's what they're there for, okay? Okay, so again, day by day on the post-shadow eclipse season, it fades, okay? So that's still having a little bit of impact on us. And so we are sitting in a 5-planet retrograde as of this week, not right now when I'm recording this, but from the 10th to the 16th, we will have Mercury retrograde, which retrograded on the 9th, right? That would have been Sunday. Jupiter retrograde on the 11th, that's up and coming, but that will be this week. Saturn retrograde in the 29th degree of Pisces, that's a big one, that's an anaretic degree, that's very active. And Uranus retrograde in Taurus, it retrograded back into Taurus for the last time at 29 degrees, that's a high impact anaretic degree. We have Neptune retrograde in Pisces, again at that 29th degree. So we're actually sitting with 3 planets in retrograde. They're in the last transit of the sign that they're ever going to be in. Some going to be for about 30 years, one's going to be for about 84 years, and the other one's going to be for about 165 years. So chances are, for a couple of those planets, not all of us will live long enough to see it come back into that sign again. So, and anytime we have any planet sitting at the 29th degree, that's known as the anaretic degree, it's kind of like a chaotic degree, and it usually acts out in the negative aspects or the negative energy first before it ever straightens out. So it's chaotic, it's all over the place, and it's working on that completion. So just remember, when these are closing out, these are going to be the last time that a lot of us are going to see in our lifetime. So why is that important? Because just what I said, it's the last time. They're making their last zoom on their last transit through those signs. And it is a big thing. And often when we see that 29th degree, it can often appear with truths coming out of the woodwork. Okay. It's chaotic, it's unstable, it's unsettled, it's unpredictable. And again, lots of times it's a lot of bad behaviors and things play out in the negative value first before they self-correct. So just keep that in mind. So we are in a 5-planet retrograde. Okay. And so I'm just going to have just a quick view of this week, up and coming week. And so we don't have near as many aspects this week as the last quite a few weeks. So it is nice. It's a little bit of a break, a little bit of a let up, kinda, but we're still going to have our plans all over the place because we have those little minor hiccup aspects, minor negative aspects that really throw a screwing into our plans. Like they're all over the place. They change day by day. The plans are going to change probably hour by hour. They can change. So, but the bonus about that, as long as you're flexible and good natured and you kind of have a heads up about it, you know what to expect, you can work with that. And if you're one of those people who you don't like plans right now, well, give it a couple hours because your plans will probably change and hopefully for the better. So when I say minor hiccup or minor negative aspects, I mean they're biquintiles or quintiles, they're semisextiles, sesquiquadrates, inconjuncts, semi-squares. Those are the kind of the ones that we have coming up, minus the semi-square. We don't have any semi-squares this week, but it's the same idea. Those are the little buggers that create problems with our daily plans, right? So just be flexible. Be willing to adjust plans, be open to plan changes, and roll with whatever comes along, and you should be just fine. So, like, it's kind of nice to have a heads up as kind of what the week is going to be like. And again, we have a couple sesquiquadrates, and we do have a Mars conjunction. So, the sesquiquadrates are minor aspects, but those are the ones that are tension. They're filled with irritation, annoyance, and it's a lot of confusion going on. And those are the ones I like to call the pick a fight aspects. So be on your best behavior, and you know what? Really figure out fact from fiction before engaging in any communication or fights or arguments. Best of all, just avoid walk away. Sometimes, or most of the time, these kind of things are not worth your time or energy or effort. So just stay away and walk away from it. If you're thrown a hook for fights, toss it back. Okay, so again, I want to address the 12th. So when we're looking at November 12th, the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius conjunct Mars in Sagittarius. And so when these are conjunction, that's a liftoff. So these are fused. That means they're basically right on top of each other. They're holding hands. Okay, so conjunctions normally are considered positive, but the reality is that's not always the case. So conjunction means they're right on top of each other, kind of charging each other, holding hands. So it does have potential to be a negative or a challenged aspect as well. So on the positive, you could be looking at some really, really good ambition, feeling ambitious, thinking ambitious, wanting to do things. It could be really, really good communication coming in or outgoing. Somebody might be getting a hold of you. You might be getting a hold of somebody else. Mars is like our actions, our willpower. That's our force to go out and get what we want, right? So that can be like very energized thinking. And again, good news coming in. But the thing of it is, because we're sitting in Mercury retrograde, chances are whatever you're going to be communicating about, talking about, or traveling to or from, because Mercury is also about transportation and mobility, it's going to be probably in regards to something in the past or somebody in the past. Okay. So, or, it could be past job opportunities, or maybe you filled out a job opportunity or a job application. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to think of. And you might be, dealing with something like that. But again, this is every time you have Mercury retrograde, that is always a direction of the past in some way, shape, or form, and your energy or your attention is focused there. So again, it can be travel, it can be transportation to and from, that can involve vehicles. It can involve, scooters or quads or side-by-sides, cars, trucks, flights, flying, air travel, those kind of things. It can be about, thinking, learning, very, very mentally, very much in the head. And again, you might want to make sure you keep your thoughts and your tempers under control, because that can also be triggering here. And it can be about learning and education, those kind of things. Speaking, talking, teaching, writing, publishing, and your energy is really put into something. But whatever I just listed, it will tend to be something you're working on, or you have been working on, or something resurfacing from the past in those areas, okay? So if you have travel plans, it's something you've already had travel plans. It's something that might need a change or attention or something like that. Now, on the flip side of this, it can also be communication from people from your past. Okay, so when you talk about Mars, it's a very masculine energy. It can be very, very sexual as well. So it could be something linking back to somebody from your past in that area. Now, I just want to throw that out there because it's Mercury retrograde. And Mercury retrograde, I'll get into that a little bit different, just the sole topic of Mercury retrograde. But that tends to always want to go back to bringing people that resurface from the past. You know, every time we're talking Mercury retrograde, it's like this huge magnet that just sort of pulls these people out of the woodwork from the past. So expect communication from people from your past. Now, that can be professional, can be job, can be clients, can be customers, can be former spouses or partners or romantic relationships from people from the past. You know, whether it's talking to them, they just resurface, you see them on the sidewalk or uptown in the vehicle, or, they text you, phone you, whatever. Or they can be inquiring about you, or you inquiring about them. That's common as well. Now, the flip side, the challenge part of this part, when we see a Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius conjunct the Mars in Sagittarius. Now, keep in mind that's hot, fiery energy. Sagittarius is a fire sign. It's very, very mutable. We have both planets sitting in a fire mutable sign. And Sagittarius is hot. It does demand healthy boundaries. It's blunt, it's straightforward, and it usually doesn't hold back. If it's got something to say, it'll say it. So when we're mixing that, so this could actually be very easily break out into fights, into wars. It could be, words or your communication or information or news about war. And why do I say that? Because Mars is our god of war. That's why I say that. It's aggressive. It's linked with force. It's linked with violence, those kind of things, sorry. And it's something else, you could be having communication about surgery, or cutting. And so this is something else that'd be just a caution of to be careful with knives and those kind of things, and cutting, and especially around the head or head areas, okay, or head traumas. Because Mercury is mind, mental, and Mars rules the first house, and the first house is usually about the physical body. So it could be cutting or bleeding, or even stabbing is possible, because that's an act of violence as well, but anything around the head area or the physical body. Mars is also known as cutting, but it's also known as a surgeon. So there could be communication about surgeries, those kind of things, right? Or something from a past surgery, present surgery, or you might be looking at a future surgery, or it could be just talking to somebody about cuttings and surgeries and those kind of things. And so the biggest thing is about news information to do with conflict. So when you have that, because the Mars is the god of war, that can be conflict in any way, shape, and form. That can be, behind closed doors on a, domestic violence, that kind of thing. On a personal level, professional, it could be job, career, co-workers, friends, whatever. So just keep that in mind, because Mars is aggressive, and it's the aggressor. It's it's an aggressive planet as a whole. And when you're mixing those two, it can be any of those things, okay? So, and again, for the most part, it's considered positive, but those things I just listed, that's got potential for violence or acts of war or words of war, fighting, conflict, those kind of challenges. That's on a rarer side, but it's still a possibility. Okay, and then just to remember, Mars and Saturn, not that Saturn is active, but Mars is also considered the malefic planet. It's tough, it's challenged, it's war-torn, right? But again, it's also the go-getter. So channel your energy and your ambition and your initiative wisely. Control your tempers, control your mouth, especially control your words, and you should do okay. So if you channel this week wise, it's got really good potential about it, but it's very, very much steering and looking backwards into past content, past areas, right? Your energy, your action is going to be in those areas. So it could be a very, very good news about a project going on from the past, or good news, something like an application or some sort of area that you've been working on, and you finally get, rolling with something old again. Okay, and just remember Mercury retrograde, that is all about working on something current, something old, not anything new. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so we are going to jump into Mercury retrograde do's and don'ts. So, Mercury retrograde, we're just going to talk a little bit about that specifically. So when we experience these most of the time 3 times a year for a 3 week span. The odd time you'll cut into the 4th time in 1 year, but not so much. So during that 3 week span, that's like the pause and reflect. You want to redo, you want to review, you want to revise, you want to restructure, you want to recalibrate things. It's working on old or current projects, things, whatever it is. And again, like I said before, Mercury retrograde, like clockwork, will just like a magnet to bring out people from your past. So that could be old friends. And don't take this as anything bad, because lots of times when I say that, people think, oh God, I'm going to run into my ex or whatever, which I mean, yeah, could be, but it's not always the case. You could be running into old family members or old relatives or long lost friends that you haven't seen in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So it can be a really, really nice reunification as well. So just keep that in mind. It's not always bad. So again, Mercury retrograde, you're not going to want to incorporate anything new, not incorporate a new business. You don't want to register a new business. You don't want to be buying large ticket items, especially vehicles or, quads or side-by-sides or motorcycles or mopeds or even wheelchairs, anything to do with transportation and mobility. It's not an ideal time to be booking air transportation, because lots of times there's trouble with that. It's not a good time for buying new appliances. Like I said, large ticket items, houses, that's usually coming with problems down the line. It's not a good time for agreements or contracts. Lots of times you can have appliances that go on the fritz, break down, leaks in dishwashers and washing machines, those kind of things. So it's lemon season as a whole is what I'd like to refer to it as. So, and it's not a time for electronic devices. Okay, so it's not a good time to purchase new iPods, computers, desktops, laptops, iPads, iPhones. If you can, I would avoid it. But if it's a must, what's basically said is if you can get a loaner for that 3 week time zone, that would be an avenue to consider. If you have to buy a new device, say for example, a new iPhone or a new iPod or whatever, iPad, it's actually suggested to buy replacement insurance with that, because guaranteed you will need it. And they say don't do it. So I'm one of those, well, I just had to try test the theory. And yep, I did need it. I bought a new iPod rather. And I did buy insurance, and I did need it because it kind of split apart and it got hot. It was kind of crazy. It was hot batteries and whatever. Anyway, when I went to take it in, I actually ended up buying, because it was Mercury retrograde and I bought it, which is a mix-up time. I actually bought the wrong insurance package. I bought repair, not replacement. So just keep in mind. So, and also with Mercury retrograde, like I said, it's not advisable for contracts and agreements. And you must be very vigilant about the details in any sort of writing, contracts, agreements, any sort of written anything, and the fine print. Okay, so Mercury is a trickster. It's not always clear. It's cloudy. Things are not how they look. And in that 3 week time span, what happens is clarity comes, and it's like, oh crap, I didn't realize that. And something else that's not advised is to be booking a lot of appointments. Okay, so and not that you can't, you can, but it's just that it's not going to stick, and it's not going to be written in stone. So whatever you book, you're probably going to have to be rescheduling. So just keep that in mind. So if you're okay with that, then great, and just be flexible, because chances are your appointments are going to be rescheduled. And again, it's not the ideal time for elective surgery. So for example, like an elbow replacement or hip replacement or a knee replacement. And do not confuse elective surgeries with life-saving surgeries or life-saving procedures. That is not the same thing. So do use common sense. I mean, if you're in a car accident, you're not going to be saying, oh, well, I can't have surgery because it's Mercury retrograde. No. That doesn't work like that. Life-saving is completely different than elective, okay? So why do I say elective surgery? There's a problem during Mercury retrograde because it's a personal planet. And every time you have a personal planet that's close to Earth, it has a higher impact. And so when you're looking at Mercury retrograde and you had an elective surgery, let's just say you had like a breast implant or like a knee replacement, lots of times, first of all, faulty tools, faulty equipment, faulty testing equipment, and faulty test results. Okay, so and if something's going to go sideways, like something's going to get nicked or cut or something goes sideways with the surgery, it's going to be during that time because it's like clockwork. That's what happens. And then you have to redo it. Okay, so just an example there. So just keep that in mind. What else do I want to say about that? Yes, and travel plans are always upset. Anyway, so I will, on my Facebook group, I usually put the do's and don'ts in a list below the Mercury retrograde little block or posting that I post. So if you want to join or you want to go look, that's where you'll see the rest of the do's and the don'ts. Anyway, it's just kind of a hiccup period, and it raises a lot of hell with things because it's a lack of clarity, right? Things aren't how they look, and the communication is confusion. There's misunderstandings, and things are taken the wrong way. It's just, yeah. And, dropped calls, missing emails, texts that don't go through, bills that just don't get paid or they get delayed, those kind of things. It's hiccups and problems with internet connections, those kind of things. Anyway, that list goes on and on. But like I said, I list that do's and don'ts in the faith group, astrology group, and you can read that for yourself. It's quite a lengthy time. So I do have people say, what the hell is Mercury retrograde actually good for? Well, it's good for rest, relax, and recharging time, rejuvenation time. It's great for last minute magic because, your plans are always changing, and sometimes those last minute things pop up, and if you're not continuously booking something during Mercury retrograde, well, you can go do that, right? And the best thing that I like out of all of it is it gives you the second whack at the cat. So what do I mean? It gives you full opportunity to be able to go redo something current, to redo something all to absolute perfection. So, for example, if you had an old contract or an old agreement, it's like we're talking weeks ago, it could even be months ago, and it resurfaces, like it would be an ideal time to redo this because you're going to start catching details and problems, things that are missing that you should put in, or things that you might want to take out, or the clarity on the detail. So it's like, that's why I say it's absolutely amazing for reviewing, redoing, and revising because it makes things perfect. And if you don't feel like doing anything like that, again, it's really a good rest and recharge and rejuvenation time, healing time. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so like I said, for the most part, we have a conjunction which can swing either way, positive or negative. For the most part, it's mostly positive, but I need to include the negative or challenge part because that's not reality, we're not advising or warning of both, okay? But for the most part, we have mostly all negative or challenging aspects, but the good news is it will pass. The second part of the good news, we don't have a lot of aspects this week. So if you can stay hyper-focused on the positive, and basically keep your tempers and your attention focused in a positive spot, you will do just fine. And again, recultivating and restructuring those old areas, not the new, the old projects, like digging out something, or maybe you're working on an old course or an education or writing, publishing or something, or whatever, or a project in the garage so that you started 6 months ago. It's absolutely ideal for that, okay? So just some ideas. Because as soon as you say Mercury retrograde, people are like, oh my God, that's terrible and whatever. Well, no, it's not the end of the world. And that's why you have astrology, because you want to be able to know what's up and coming and what are you supposed to do with it? It's like, how do you operate with the energy and make it work to your advantage? So that's the whole idea. Know how the energy is coming in, know what it means, and know what to do with it. And when you know what to do with it in a positive manner, well, you're well on your way, right? And the biggest thing about Mercury retrograde is you don't want to be forcing anything because it can become very, very frustrating and very, very expensive, right? You want to go with the flow. So it's, I like to say to people, a good example of that would be like, well, if you're on the river with a paddle boat or a canoe, if you paddle with the current, it goes a hell of a lot easier and it flows a lot better. But if you wanted to, you could try paddling upstream, but it really doesn't get you too many places too fast, and you get really, really tired, and really you get nowhere. In the end, you probably go backwards. So that's a really good way to describe it. One of my instructors, this is quite a few years ago, she would say, to her students, she would say it would be like throwing a message in a bottle and you're standing by the edge of the ocean. So you put the cap on it, You're ready to wing it out into the ocean, and so hopefully it goes out across the continent to the next country. But if the tide's coming in, you can throw it out there, but it's going to come right back to you, right? But if you would wait till Mercury station direct, where the current is going directly out, and then toss that bottle out, away it goes. You will never see that bottle again, and it'll get to where it's going very, very smoothly and probably quite rapidly, okay? So anyway, so just some of the do's and don'ts and kind of a description of the Mercury retrograde time zone. Okay, so with that being said, and do enjoy your past people showing up and popping up and conversing with them. And I hope that's a good experience where you can find old friends from 20, 30, 40 years ago, whether it's, old classmates or family members or whatever. So that's always a bonus too, but it does come with those people who probably could be a pain in your ass as well. So anyway, use it and deal with it accordingly. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to, let me see. Oh, yes, Jupiter retrograde. So that's on the 11th. So Jupiter retrograde, especially in Cancer. So Jupiter in Cancer is in its exalted sign. It likes being there and it's happy to be there. It just expresses itself really, really well, really positively. It wants to bring you good things. Jupiter grows, it expands, it makes everything big around it. So when I say Jupiter in Cancer, for example, that could actually affect the physical body. So if you're like a sun sign Cancer or have a heavy placement of Cancer in your birth chart, that could actually make you gain weight. That's possible. Or it can make you gain muscle mass or body mass. All right. So no, if you're into bodybuilding, that would be like muscle mass, muscle gain. But Jupiter expands. It can actually expand the waistline. You could actually put on weight if you're a Cancer. That's possible. I mean, it's not going to happen to everybody, but it is possible. And it wants to expand the home or the house or the real estate. That's something else that's very, very generic meaning for Cancer, okay? Anyway, it's going to station retrograde on November 11th. So what does that mean? It's going to station and it's going to go back over. Every time you see retrograde, it goes back over a certain amount of time. It visually doesn't go backwards, but it kind of gives that reference or that kind of meaning, right? So it's going to go back over old time. So when you see retrograde, it means it clicks into reverse and we go back over old stuff, and then it goes direct and we go back over that same stuff again. So really, it transfers over a certain span of time, a certain period of time 3 times. It goes over it once, it backs up, goes over it again, and then it goes forward, and then it goes over it again. So often Jupiter can bring double dippings, good blessings, an opportunity to do things in an expanded way, right? Or, if you're working on something and it can give you those ideas of like, oh, you know what, I can expand this, I can do this, I never thought of this, but it gives you, opportunity to grow, expand your horizons. Jupiter always wants to expand your horizons, expand your ideas, expand your horizons in life. And it can also include travel, okay? Again, Jupiter will be in retrograde status until into 2026. So it can bring you double dippings of good luck. That's the part I like about it, right? Okay, so that being said, and like I said, we'll have 5 planets in retrograde for a little while. And again, that's just recultivating the old. It's nothing to get bent out of shape over. And something else I just want to point out, I just remembered I forgot to mention this. During Mercury retrograde, do double check when you're turning and the stop signs, and you're going to have to drive a little more defensively, because that quite often is when accidents can happen. It kind of doubles up the potential for accidents. So whether it's air travel accidents, vehicle accidents, bicycle, any sort of modes of transportation accidents are a little more frequent and a little more heightened. And sometimes they can, I have seen that where it can be a little more catastrophic effects and when we're talking accidents. So one example of a very catastrophic vehicle accident that happened was the bus accident with the hockey players. Okay, so that was in Saskatchewan. So that actually did happen during Mercury retrograde. So it's not always like that, but it's got potential to be that way. Humboldt, yes, the Humboldt bus accident was during a Mercury retrograde. So that's something else I want to put a warning. So not only triple check, but drive for yourself defensively, but also drive for that person who maybe just is missing something or not paying attention. Okay, so just pay attention to that. All right. Something else too I want to mention about Mercury retrograde. Often you will see more known or more popular or more famous people pass away during this time too. So that might be something you want to just track and just keep maybe track of in your own mind, or just watch to see if that actually comes true or if you actually notice it during this time zone. Again, November 9th to 29th, 2025. Okay, so with that being said, moving on. All right, so I'm going to move on to some of the house areas that we can be looking at for this week. So again, about the physical body, the head face areas. Okay, so that can be exterior head, that can be interior head, including the brain. So that can include sinuses, around the eyes, in behind the eyes, the ears, anything to do around or in the head, okay? Physical body, so that can be health, that can be wellness, that can be illness, that can include your body weight, right? Like we talked about, your body image, and how your appearance is and how you're identified through, okay? So that represents house number 1. And so when we're talking Aries, that's about me, myself, and I, okay? And it's about our physical health and how we're recognized in the public eye, how people see you on a daily basis, right? And how you approach every day. Okay, so that being said, and again, very, very physical body related. Okay, and so this is going to be third house activated as well. So this is going to be about your relatives. And so, or people who you're close to. This is not going to include your kids or your children or your parents, but it can be people you're close to, your neighbors, people in your community, in your neighborhood, but close in proximity, right? Your environment. So again, relatives could be aunts, uncles, cousins, and it's going to be communication big time. So that's communication incoming, news, information, emails, text message, phone calls, etc., meeting in person. And again, this will really, really hover around interpersonal devices. So that can be computers, desktops, laptops, iPhones, iPads, iPods, any sort of device or systems. Now, again, you might be shopping around for one. And again, like I said, it's not advisable to purchase one unless you're going to purchase replacement insurance with it because we're sitting Mercury retrograde. But you might be thinking about it and you might be shopping around and you might be dealing on one. There's nothing wrong with looking at it, shopping around and dealing on it. I just would not purchase if you can help it. Again, social media platforms. This has got to do with internet-based projects or internet-based areas. Again, you can expect social media hiccups or internet failures or disconnection or connectivity problems with social media or internet. So problems with the internet connection. Again, driving short distance. So you're here, there, you're all over the place. Again, those last minute changes and those daily changes and plans probably are going to be transportation oriented. So what do I mean? So you might plan on staying home for the afternoon, but all of a sudden something changes. You get a phone call or somebody needs you to go do something. You hop in your car because you have to go get cold medicine for the neighbor. You have to go get cold medicine for your husband or wife, or you need to go get somebody's mail or pick up a parcel. They missed the courier, so you have to go to the depot and go pick it up. So it's you're going to be here, there, and all over the place, but it's going to be local environment. So again, that's a good example of your plans changing and you're having to go drive somewhere to go do something, right, for somebody because something didn't work out. It's a hiccup in communication, a hiccup in transportation, a hiccup in delivery services, those kind of things. And again, this can include writing and editing. So if anybody's doing writing and editing projects, that can include those areas. And again, siblings and neighbors. Siblings is very highlighted for this particular week, okay? And this, again, this can include air travel. So you might be talking about going on vacation, talking about going someplace, talking about air travel. I know I was just yesterday and like the last couple days. Going on vacations, those kind of things. So usually that would indicate some sort of by plane or a jetliner or airliner going probably long distance, okay? So anything to do with that. And something I want to mention too is keep an eye on your neighbors too. Make sure your neighbors are doing okay. And the other warning I want to put out is gossip, because when we have a third house that's quite activated because we have an active Mercury, just do keep a caution on gossip. Gossip can be a real troublemaker. Gossip can be a real problem. Do know what you're talking about. Know fact from fiction before you say anything to anybody or you decide to share news or information, okay? And the reason I say that it comes with a bit of a notation is because we have that Mars conjuncting Mercury. And so if somebody's saying things that are not true or gossip, it can cause a lot of problem. And that right there can cause a whole lot of war or fighting words or conflict to do with gossip, okay? Because we have that activated Mercury conjunct Mars. So that can be really, really good, or it can be a real problem, especially if there's gossip or a lack of truth or falsehood going on. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so moving on. So that will also include, okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the north and south axis, north node in Pisces, south node in Virgo. That's known as a health axis, but I'll get into that a little bit later in a separate compartment of this reading. But we're going to have a sixth house activated because Mercury is activated as well. So again, that's the health house. It's also a karma house. So, dealing with karmic cycles, putting karmic cycles to rest, dealing with them, bringing closure, starting something new. Again, about karma, however that fits for you. So, and this is also a health house. The sixth house, the house of Virgo, is a health house. It's about healing and wellness. Again, that will flip right in with the house number 1. That's about the physical body and physical health. Okay, so you might be having health routines, health regimens, those kind of things, finding and systems, and that can be health systems or organizing your health, or it can just be building systems, because the house of Virgo is the organizer, like they're the perfectionist of giving everything, all your ducks in a row. So finding systems, creating systems, making systems and organization that works for you. It's all about your work, right? Doing things that are very, very important to you in your work. Okay, it's all about the details. Virgo is a detail freak, right? They don't miss anything. If you need somebody to look over details in literature or communication, the Virgo is your person. This is going to include pets, okay? Again, mentorship. So you might be mentoring somebody might be mentoring you. You might be training somebody, might be teaching somebody something. Again, that will be work that's very important to you that you're going to pass on or train somebody else, okay? This also includes diet, exercise, health focus. That's got to do with food, body movement, daily routines, and also Virgo, the sixth house, is also about your service to the world. So how you bring a service or you serve customers or clients or whatever your work is, usually that tends to be service to the world, however that applies. That could be a hairdresser, that could be a pet groomer, that could be a counselor, it could be a doctor, it could be anything like that. And daily routines. So if you don't have daily routines, you might be thinking about getting some daily routines in place. That's always a good thing, okay? And there is a negative side to the sixth house, and that can be like a little bit of bad luck, being at the wrong place at the wrong time, or things that just, it's kind of like, that can be very karmic linked as well. And feeling enslaved or slavery. So that is something like having to run after somebody else, or feeling enslaved to somebody else, or being enslaved to a circumstance or a situation. Okay, apply that accordingly. That won't be for everybody, but it will definitely be for some. Okay, and our star of the show is going to be our ninth house, right? Because we have a lot of Sagittarius energy, and that because we have Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius conjunct Mars in Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius rules the ninth house. So the ninth house is about spirituality. It's about occult. It's about esoteric. It's about mystical study. It's about finding solutions, solution-oriented, international connections. So that can be connecting with anybody overseas, so wherever you are, and the overseas spot from where you live. International cultures, and that can be teaching, learning, taking courses. You might be learning courses, taking courses, or you might be teaching them. Expanding your horizons in life. Like the ninth house is also Jupiter ruled. Again, it likes to expand your horizons in life. It's also about long distance travel. That will tie in about thinking or talking about flying somewhere, going somewhere on vacation, air travel, however that suits. Long distance travel is a ninth house affair. And going on an adventure, right? So along the time when you're on long distance travel, or you're talking about it, that usually becomes an adventure, someplace new or someplace that you like keep on going back to for that extended adventure. Writing, publishing, speaking, and it's about languages. You might be studying a language, taking a new language, or wanting to learn a new language. It's about church, it's about religion, it's about ethics, it's about spirituality. Religion, I think I just said it. If I didn't, I'll say it again. Philosophy, again, long trips, long distance trips. And it's about ethics. And this can also touch in the area of in-laws. If you have in-laws, often this will show up in this next week because we are heavy ninth house activated. International travel, connections, and culture. So foreign cultures. This can also include human resources. And so also a little bit of good luck and good fortune can come with the ninth house affairs because it's Jupiter ruled, okay? We will be looking at a fourth house. I say that because we have Jupiter stationing retrograde in Cancer. Cancer is the fourth house. The ruler of Cancer is the moon, and the moon is also about the fourth house. And so the fourth house can be mom, right? Mom or mother related, mother oriented. Mom might be in the spotlight this week for whatever reason. She or other females might be a very, very important. Something going on with mom this week, right? It's also emotional. It's about our inner world, okay? It's about our home, our real estate, the house we live in. We might be moving. You might have just moved. You might have just purchased, or you might be selling a house, or you might be having something to do with occupants in that house. Could be renters, could be a new baby, could be anything like that. Doing repairs, additions, renovations to your house, or just moving into a new house, or maybe you just moved into a new house. And it's about family, right? Any part of your family, extended family, ancestry, genealogy. So this is always interesting thing too, right? So anything to do with your ancestry in the past. Now this can also be very, very health linked. So you might be looking into gene therapy, anything gene linked or genetic linked for a health problem or a health fix, a health resolution, right? Remember the ninth house is always about resolutions and solutions. And a genealogy. So a genealogy, that can be anything to do with family linked, family trees, family ties. Genealogy, we could also see something like that coming up in, criminal forensic genealogy, something like that. Our roots, anything related back to our ancestry, our ancestors back. And again, this can be very health oriented, like uncle so-and-so, great uncle so-and-so had heart issues, and we're studying that through our family tree for answers or solutions. Again, about mom or mother figures. And remember, your natural mom, you might have other mother figures in your life. So it could be, aunts and uncles or close people who might resemble a mother figure. It's not always our physical mother, but it can be. Our foundations. And this can actually link to the foundations in your house, like your concrete foundations or your wood foundations of your house. It can actually be a focus or a spotlight in that area too. Again, genetics, and it's also about old age, okay? And it's also a psychology house. The fourth house is a water house. It's a house that's dark and it's emotional and you can't see those kind of things. It's things going on behind closed doors in houses or within families. It tends to be the unseen or hidden realm. So just remember, we have 3 water houses in the zodiac wheel, 4, 8, and 12, okay? And 4 is one of those. So, you might be having a baby or you're pregnant and nobody knows, but that's an unseen, hidden thing in a dark house that nobody knows about because you can't see behind closed doors and you never said nothing. And it is an addition to your house or your family, okay? Just an example. That won't be for everybody, but just an example of what I'm talking about. All right. We are moving on to... Yes, that will be those. We'll save that one for later. That's going to be the health axis, 12th house. Okay, so we are going to be specifically talking about going into health and anatomy right now. Okay, so I discussed the houses, and so we have a very high impact, especially around that ninth house affairs, which I just said. So that's always, the ninth house is usually pretty much light and joyous. It's a good place to be. It's kind of the happy-go-lucky, easygoing house of adventure and good luck and those kind of things. Also, ninth house can also include legal affairs or legal matters, law matters, those kind of things. Just keep that in mind. It's also about truths as well. So you might have legal matters or things going on. You might be thinking about that. Whether it be contracts or things to do with lawyers or courts or documents, those kind of things, that can include that too. I just wanted to back up and throw that in there. Okay, so we are going to be moving on to health and anatomy. Okay, we'll jump forward with this. So we are going to be looking at, it's because the moon and Cancer is activated, that is going to include mom and mother figures. So that could be, you might be the mom or it might be your mom. So the breast areas, stomach, fluid balance, digestion, glandular secretions, and the eyes, okay? So that's something that's very, very significant with the moon. That's part of the anatomy that goes with that. So this will also include the nervous system. So again, keep a calm nervous system and do those grounding techniques and get rid of any negative energy or negative vibration, because that calms the nervous system. So whether it's walking or exercise or music, something that calms the nervous system is a good thing for this week, especially with that Mars conjunction. So this includes the nervous system, the brain, the sight, the eyes, mouth, tongue, respiratory system, that includes the lungs, hands, elbows, arms, your thyroid gland, and remember the mind. So the Mercury is always about the mind and the mental status. Again, that really can affect the nervous system, so just keep that in mind. The thymus gland. Then we are looking at the muscles of the body. Okay, the physical body, the head, the face areas, that's interior, exterior, anywhere. External reproductive system, and that can include the endocrine or the hormone systems. The hormone progesterone could be testosterone. It can be estrogen, any sort of hormone that would link to the reproductive system, male or female. Okay, so head, face, and red blood cells. Okay, so anything to do with the red blood or blood, anything that can be blood condition, that can be blood clots, that can be infection in the blood. Bladder area, okay, and adrenal glands. And again, cuts. So again, I'm just going to warn about the head face area, just for head traumas, cuts to the heads or the physical body. So just cuts as a whole to the whole physical body, head to toe. So just be very, very careful on that. For the most part, it should not be effect, but it can be, because we have Mercury retrograde. We do have that conjunction. If that happens to play out in the negative value, that's what can happen. Okay, so we are also going to be looking at arterial blood circulation. So artery blood, your liver, your thighs, your hips, your ears, and the pancreas. That's also very, very highlighted for this particular week as well. Okay, so we'll cover, that's the planetary anatomy, and we are going to go to the signs. So something else, again, that's very, very amplified, the hips, thighs, and upper legs. So there could be people looking at, for example, hip replacements or hip surgeries or something to do with thighs, or fixing, or maybe you're just looking at thighs for better bodybuilding, better muscle physique, and working and exercising your upper legs and your hips. That's totally possible as well. So a focus, again, that can be positive, that can be problematic, looking for solutions. So apply accordingly. And again, the breast, stomach, upper lobes of the liver. Again, the liver is very, very pinpointed and highlighted, as well as the breast area. That can be male or female, of course, and stomach area. Okay, so that again is moon, and that is Cancer. All right. And I think that pretty much wraps up the health and anatomy, but I do want to talk a little bit about, we don't have a lot going on, not that I have to make this extendedly very long, but I tend to make it that way, because I can just throw in a little information. You can always turn me on or turn me off or restart me or rewind me. I want to talk a little bit about the health axis, because I haven't talked about that in a while. So our north node is in Pisces, our south node is in Virgo, so that is known as a health axis. So the last time this axis was here was about 18 years ago in a few days. So if you go back 18 years, that will take you about to 2006, 2007, 2008. Go back to that time zone. It's not going to be the same story, but it will have similar storylines. It will have similar themes or similar things going on that links back to that same time zone, because when you're talking astrology, it always goes back in cycles. It always goes back in time zones. So if you go back to that time zone, what was going on for you health-wise? Guaranteed it would be something. So there's going to be something similar, or it could be just a similar undertone of something. It could be something showing up as something very differently in the health area. That can be resolutions, that can be fixes, that can be health and healing, but something that would have maybe been an undercurrent or something that was giving you a hard time about 18 years ago, and it's surfing itself, but maybe in a different manner, like it's showing up differently now, but maybe from the same thing, or it could be the same thing, something reoccurring. Okay, so it will always link back to that previous cycle in some way, shape, or form. Now the health axis. Okay, so what does this include? Okay, so we know Pisces rules the 12th house, and that can be about drugs, pharmaceutical drugs. That specifically can be about addiction problems, okay, or things going on behind the scenes that nobody knows about. So that can be health problems going in behind closed doors that nobody's bothered to share, or maybe you just don't know. It is hidden because you can't see it. You don't know what the hell's going on. And Virgo is rules the 6th house. Virgo is a health house. Okay, so I'm just going to jump back over to the 6th health affairs. So that's a health and a healing and a wellness house, okay? And so that is about your diet, your exercise, and a health focus in some way, shape, or form. Often you will see this show up in people who are Virgo placements. That there's always something going on with people like that. I'm a Virgo rising. I know what you're talking about. Been there, done that, right? And so whatever it is, it'll be some sort of health issue someplace. It doesn't always have to be major. It can be just minor irritations going on, but you'll often see that. Okay, so health, healing, wellness, and you might need to form some daily routines for better health, right? Or change your diet or add exercise in, but a major focus on your health area, okay? And so when we are talking about, so let me pull this up. Virgo is about infections. It's about viruses. It's about, let me pull this up. It's detoxifying and purifying the body, right? So that's, Virgo always wants to perfect. So detoxify, purify, but it's about gut health. It's about digestion. It's about viruses. It's about infections. It can be about small bacteria good, small bacteria bad, and small funguses, right? So that can be bacterial infections, that can be fungal infections. So that's what Virgo is very known for. It's very, very tied to the gut health in any way, shape, or form. And when we start mixing Pisces, well, Pisces is about the blood. So that's about blood quality. What do you got going on with your blood clots, blood infections? What's going on with that? And it's about the lymphatic system. It's about the immune system. It's about toxicity. Again, this double amplifies viruses and the thymus gland. Okay, so again, about the immune system, immunity. Okay, so that's that health axis of Virgo and Pisces. And so I just told you about the 6th house, what Virgo means, what Pisces means, what time zone it links back to 06, 07, 08, sometime in that time zone. And I want to read to you about basically the 12th house affairs. Now, what does this have to do with health? Because Pisces rules the 12th house, that's why. And so this can be about, again, the 12th house is about the hidden, right? It's a water house, it's an emotional house, it's also a subconscious house, psychology house. So this can not only link to physical health, but it can be mental and emotional health. So keep that in mind. So we are talking about the unseen realm, and it's always about the private things going on behind the scenes that you can't see. Again, this can be inner psychology work that can be working on our shadow selves. This can also be about, past lives. So past lives that affect us on our subconscious way. Like I had one friend to me said, I'm sure I must have drowned in a previous life because I'm scared to death of water, right? Again, that would be a 12th house affair. That would be like a past life and having that subconscious fear, but really nothing happened in this lifetime, so why the hell am I scared of water? So those kind of things. And it's work, and our shadow spots is working on it. So again, the mental, emotional health areas. Okay, and it's also about, again, I touched on this a little bit before, but addiction. So we can be having addiction problems going on behind closed doors, behind the scenes that nobody knows what's going on. So again, addictions can be any kind of addiction. It doesn't always mean street drugs. It can be prescription drugs. It can be sex addictions. It can be pornography addictions. And the other biggest thing that people like to just avoid and they kind of make excuses is being the workaholic or a work addiction. That can be a very big problem for, I think, most people. And I think it's justified because you get money or something monetary or in the end for it. So it's justified by money, but do know workaholism and work addiction is a problem. Okay, so there can be that going on. So there can be problems with that going on behind closed doors in a family or a household as well. This can also be the house of confinement. And so what do I mean by that? So this can be somebody in hospital. So you can be in the hospital, somebody knows in the hospital, a friend or relative. So that can be hospitalization. It can also include prisons and those kind of isolation, okay? Again, isolation, that could be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. So what do I mean? Isolation, you are stuck in being isolated by the hand of somebody else or force of somebody else, or you might be in isolation because you're busy healing and you're meditating and you're taking some self-healing time, rejuvenation time, recharging time. That's a good thing. And the other thing that goes on with that 12th house that can be a problem is unhealthy escapism. Okay, so there's healthy escapism and there's unhealthy escapism. What do I mean? Healthy escapism is taking some time, some isolation time for yourself. So you might be exercising, you might be meditating, you might be reading a good book, listening to some music, or listening to some music while you go for a walk, you know, to decompress and enjoy your time, having self time. You need solitude time to be able to do that. And that's what they would call healthy escapism. But the flip side of that is unhealthy escapism. That's going on behind closed doors. So that would mean getting high, getting drunk, or getting drunk and mixing booze with it to escape reality, because you need to pause real life. You need to pause reality because it's not something you want to deal with. Now, should that be the case, that right there would be a red flag. We need to do something about this, because that's what they would consider unhealthy escapism. That's going to cause you problems. That's going to cause you troubles, okay? So only you would know that. That's not going to apply to everybody, but it will most certainly apply to a lot of people. And so again, that's that health axis. Everything I've just mentioned, that's got to do with that health axis. So apply accordingly. Not all of it's going to apply to everybody, but some of it will. Okay. Again, the 12th house can also be avoiding, evading, and escapism. So you might be avoiding getting help with an addiction. You might be escaping family problems or home problems by applying the work addiction or the workaholic. There's that too, right? So take it as it lands, apply it accordingly. And again, it's a water house. And again, we could be doing a lot of shadow work when it comes to this area as well. And that's really, really a good thing, because it's like getting all those karmic cycles from previous past lives, getting those dealt with, bringing them to completion, dealing with them, and setting them free. You know, that's your karmic debt, and your karmic work becomes paid off in full, okay? And something else I want to talk about a little bit, I talked about a little bit about this earlier, is that 29th degree. So we're in the 29th degree of Neptune. And so when we talk about that, that goes on for about 14 years. So Neptune has been in Pisces for about 14 years. We're in the last legs of the transit. So if you think back 14 years ago, there's two things that go on here. So when this first Neptune moved into Pisces, it's in its home sign. And so that is very, very, very highlighted with severe addiction problems. And we've seen that over the last 14 years, right? That's very, very prime, obvious things that have gone on. So that really describes that particular combination. And so addictions, and that's also about prescription drugs. And so we're going to start finding out truths about pharmaceuticals, prescription drugs. Were we conned? Was it authentic? Was it the truth? Were we lied to? Was it falsehoods? What's going on there? But we do know in that 14 years that we have severe addiction problems, whether it's prescription meds, whether it's street drugs, drugs and alcohol. It's been a problem. So we are in that 29th degree, which means it's that chaotic chaos degree, that anaretic degree, which tends to play out on the negative before it cleans itself up. And we're right there. We're in that energy right now. So we can just sit back and we can watch this, how this plays out on a country level, a global level, an international level, and see what surfaces. So like I said before, we have 3 planets in that 29th degree, which makes it very upset. It makes it very turbulent. Okay, so let's just sit back and watch and see what happens with that. Okay, and something else I'm going to mention is we do have a lot of water energy. So that means, what does that mean? It means it's turbulent water, it's turbulent oceans. It can be water leaks, it can be water main breaks, it can be massive flooding in countries. We've seen that going on. That's going to continue for a while. Again, that comes with that 29th degree flooding, water leaks, water breaks, water lines breaking, water damage, right? So if you happen to be leaving your house going somewhere, be sure to turn your water main off, your main water source off, because that can happen. Okay, so again, lots of water. So that's water problems, however it means, but it's also emotional. So it can be ultra emotional. We're here, we're there, all over in the emotions, uncontrolled emotions. When you have a lot of water going on, it's being aspected. We're sitting in the 29th degree. It's like your emotions in your mind could be going 20 miles an hour, and 20 different directions. So just keep that in mind. And so something you may want to step back and stay in observation mode until this time passes, because this time will pass, of course. But again, it's turbulent waters. So literally turbulent waters with water problems, or turbulent waters with emotions, turbulent emotions going on. So we have the sun and we have Venus sitting in Scorpio. That's water. Venus does not like being in Scorpio, right? We have Jupiter sitting in Cancer, another water sign. We have Saturn sitting in the last legs, 29th degree of Pisces. That's another water sign. We have Neptune sitting in Pisces at the 29th degree, another water sign, the same water sign. We also have the North Node sitting in a water sign, okay? So that's where all that water energy comes from. And again, something else that can be a problem with water, and I say it's the water energy, is not minding your own business, or people sticking their nose in your business. You know, water is fluid. Fluid runs into walls. Fluid runs under doors. It runs into places it's not supposed to be, because it has no form, and it just sort of seeps and migrates into where it's not supposed to be. So we look at for an attention, or if we look at that for people not minding their own business, that can be a problem. Okay, so just you might have to establish some healthy boundaries, either with you or someone else not having healthy boundaries with yourself, okay? Something else, oh yes, so with extreme water energy, so this can also be swelling, water retention, okay? So, or backed up water retention in like a lazy lymphatic system. So swelling, water retention in any part of the body, because we have such high water energy right now. So that's something else that can be a little bit more active or more activated this time zone. Okay, so with that being said, I think that's pretty much going to wrap up this reading for this particular week. Like I said, it's not a real major busy week, but there's going to be changing of plans daily, probably multiple times a day. So be flexible. Do expect to do some short trips here, some short trips there. Do expect to help your neighbors, your friends, your relatives, people who are close to you, people in your neighborhood. And do enjoy and keep that spotlight on November 12th, that Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars. So that's got some real good initiative, some good energy, some ambition, some good news coming in. But again, that can take the flip side where it becomes fight and war news, okay? So keep hyper vigilant on the positive, because that one you don't want to get out of control on you, okay? So I think that will wrap it up. And so if you stay very focused, very positive, this should be a really good week for you to accomplish things. And if you need to isolate and work on self and heal self, meditate, decompress, it's a really good week for that too, okay? So until we talk again, stay happy, stay healthy, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. Bye for now.